Um, I'm concerned about just practice right now. I got a lot of people around me that are smarter than me and more organized than me that are working on the details of trying to figure out all the big stuff. And, we're here. We arrived late last night. We slept in, tried to get our bearings today and trying to get into some sort of schedule / routine, from here on out. The biggest issue we're having is trying to get a schedule put together. We're not the only ones across the country that are in limbo right now because of the pandemic, et cetera. But when you add on, not knowing where our home games are going to be, really they're neutral games, so to speak. It's hard to, team up with teams or ask them to participate with you when you don't know where you're going to be. So now that we know, now that we're here and we got boots on the ground, we're working diligently and heating up the phones of trying to pair up with other people that are in the same boat as we are to try to find games. Certainly there's a lot of things to get organized, but that's probably, in the top tier of things that we're concerned about right now is trying to, pair up with other teams. You go through all these struggles and you get all the support to get to where we're at, and then not having any games to play would be a pretty bitter pill to swallow. So that's one of our main concerns that we have right now.
Coach VanBleet, KRQE in Albuquerque. Just want to know how daunting of a task is this? I mean, you're trying to coach, and you're talking about distractions. I mean, you uproot yourself. There's COVID-19 going on. There's just all these moving parts. Like, how distracting is that for you guys as a coaching staff, and what do you do to focus and get the work done?
Come on, man. There's a lot of worse things going on out there than what we're dealing with. We're excited. We're thrilled that we're going to practice. We're just happy to get on the court and to compete and to do what we all love. I mean, the other stuff pales in comparison to try to work out all the details and the minutiae and all that stuff, and we'll get it done. We got too many smart people in our organization not to figure it out. But we're more thankful and grateful than we are anything else. I mean, the outcome could have been a lot worse. Who knows how it unfolds? No one has a crystal ball, and people are going through a lot worse than we are. So we're just trying to embrace it. We're trying to look at it as, wow, what an experience. There's a lot of positives that could come from this. Certainly there are negatives as well, but we're trying to be positive. We're trying to be upbeat. We'll see how it unfolds. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know exactly, what the rest of the day is going to be. Unfortunately, this I can't even make this up. We've already hit a snag. We were scheduled to practice late this afternoon. We were told that our floor would be ready and available by like 5 or 6 p.m. And then it got pushed back to 7 or so. And we were fine with that because we wanted our guys wanted to watch the draft anyway. So, when you're in this type of bubble situation, time is not the same. We could practice at 10 p.m. and it wouldn't bother any of us. We're not going anywhere. We're not doing anything. There's nothing to go home to, et cetera. So now I just found out, worst time ever, for you guys anyway, mood wise, that, we're not going to have access to our court. We will by noon tomorrow, but they had some snags, human error, et cetera. But, it's perfect for what we're going through, perfect for 2020. And, it's just another small hurdle that we're going to have to overcome. We do have access to some other courts that they have in place, but they utilize sport courts, which, I think are more multi-purpose type of surface and not necessarily ones that we want to get our student athletes on and compete at a high level. So we'll still be able to get shots up, do individuals, kind of like practice how we were before we arrived here. But, it's just another obstacle that's been put in front of us, but it won't be a big one.
Coach, so speaking of the NBA draft, have you heard anything about Trevelin Queen, and where do you suspect that he might have a chance to go in either one of those rounds, or maybe the latter second round or something?
I don't know. I'm like you. I know what I read. Certainly had some conversations about Trev as a person and a player leading up to tonight. But, like I say to everybody, all it takes is one guy, one GM to fall in love with you. All 30 franchises don't have to love you. It just takes one. And at the same time, I mean, this isn't a make or break night. It could be a nice little chapter in the story, but it will have very little bearing on him making an NBA roster either this year or in the future. I can't imagine he would be a first round pick, but you never know. It takes one person. But those second rounders aren't guaranteed much. Some of them, will work out some deals, but most of them will have to earn the team just like a free agent would. And sometimes it's better to be a free agent because you can choose a little bit more of what organization would fit your personality and who they have at your position and things like that. And, I've coached players that have been drafted and haven't made it. And I've coached players that haven't been drafted and are superstars. So, again, everyone wants to see their name in lights, and certainly, his former teammates would love to celebrate, but at the same time, it's not that much bearing on where his future lies.
Hey, Chris, is just to sort of follow up on the NBA draft, you've coached guys, like you said, that have made it. You've coached guys that probably didn't make it that you maybe thought would have. I'm curious if you have any draft night stories where a player made it and you got that text, or maybe you were surprised. Is there anything that stands out in draft history referring to players you've coached, either surprise, good way or bad way, and anything like that they didn't get drafted or that they did?
Okay, hold up. Now, I know I look silly and not very smart, but even if I had some stories like that, there's no way I'm going to share them. I mean,
just between us.
Some kid I used to coach out there that I didn't think had a chance in hell being drafted, but I'm going to talk about it, or vice versa. Like this, I'm not going down that slope.
Any surprises on the other side?
No question about it. I got stories like that, but I'm not going to share them.
Were there any guys that you that stand out on a draft night that obviously you were happy for anybody that got drafted, but anybody that's maybe playing that didn't get drafted? I know you coached a couple guys. VanBleet's a guy that kind of comes to mind, and to me that I think some people somehow are surprised that he's doing so well. Are there any guys like that you knew were going to do well, even if on draft night they didn't have the success or didn't get drafted as high as maybe people think successful players get drafted?
The Fred VanVleet story is a special one. I've said this to other people that there's no one, and if they say this, they're lying to you, because other than Fred VanVleet, his stepdad, Joe Danforth, and maybe his mother, but all mothers believe in their children, right, and love them irregardless. And maybe one of his brothers believed in their heart that Fred VanVleet was going to be a star in the NBA, or even get a contract. I don't think anyone else that I know, and certainly I was close to him for a long time and still am, could really say that. Now, a lot of people would say I would never bet against Fred VanVleet because of his competitiveness, because of his mind, but he just didn't meet the eye test. He didn't have the so-called qualifications of an NBA player with his stature, with his lack of athleticism. I mean, when you try to describe him, when people call you, it's like, well, he's not that fast. He doesn't jump that high. He's really not a great shooter. That's not a good start for a resume for an NBA player. And that's how you would describe Fred. But you can't teach his mind and his approach. But the story that probably sticks with me the most is the kid that got drafted from Bowling Green, Rashawn Holmes. I inherited him, and he was a third-team All-MAC player when I arrived. And the only thing that changed in his life was my staff. And just to watch his growth I remember calling my buddies at Wichita State when I got there and said, man, this kid has got talent and he's behind where he should be with his age and experience. And oh, wow, he could be so good. I just didn't know if he could get there that fast. And he really did. He changed, and the light started flickering. You could see it. And he just took off, and he put the work in and he had the talent, and he ended up getting drafted, I think 33rd or 35th. And now he's been 5 years maybe in the NBA, and he's changed his life and he's changed people's lives around him. And, just to watch him go through that and to know that, you had a little bit to do with his change and then his big change. And, those kind of things just get you, all warm and fuzzy inside. And that's one of the reasons why you coach, especially when you get older, when you're changing people's lives, not just, monetarily, but just with their outlook, et cetera.
Coach, I guess, when you guys are finally able to hit the practice court, what are you wanting to see from the guys? Obviously, it's going to be a very sped up timeline in terms of getting on the practice court and then maybe playing games next week, and just kind of trying to fit all the puzzle pieces together in terms of, from an on-court standpoint.
Yeah, I got a long list of what needs to be put in over here, and it doesn't fit with how many days are left before we start playing games. So we're going to have to pick and choose, which is going to be an interesting study of what we think is most important. We're not going to have everything in, we're not going to be prepared to play against every zone. We're not going to have enough practice time against every in the game situation. We're not going to, we're not going to be able to be as detailed as we were. But at the same time, 5 years ago, we had X amount of practices before a first game without summer access to them, without fall access to them. So I've been doing this long enough to know what it's like to try to get a team ready to compete, when you don't have as much time as we do lately. And at the same time, it's not as if we haven't been able to still find ways to prepare and get better with our skill development, with our 5-on-0, with our timing, with putting in, stuff that maybe we normally wouldn't at that time of the year. But that's not going to change. All we can do right now with our guys is get them understand how important every minute of every practice is. We've got to squeeze the most out of all of our time on the floor together, and they have to hang on every word. And our film studies got to be more focused, and I think they will. Time will tell, but I just get a vibe from them. We already had a film session today that it was just a little different. We all have less distractions around us right now. Once we get another day under our belt here, my wife will never watch this, but I hope she understands what I'm saying. But we're all going to have less distractions. No one really has much to go home to now. So it'll feel, to me, it feels like we're somewhere for a holiday tournament, okay? Or we're somewhere in a site for an NCAA tournament where it's ball, ball, ball. And that's all you're eating and drinking basketball. That's it. So that's the feel I get. We'll see how it unfolds. But I think our kids got the right attitude. I'm really proud of their resiliency they've shown, the toughness they've shown, because they've had a lot thrown at them. You got to remember, we went into a bubble, if you will, not too long ago in Las Cruces, where they uprooted themselves out of their off-campus apartments. And we had to help them get organized, but they had to move on campus, and they've been living off campus, some of them for 2-3 years now. And now they got to go on campus, and they have to agree not to do anything but basketball and books. And then obviously it turned out not to be enough. And so they're not silly. They're not dumb. Like, man, I did all this for nothing. So we've thrown a lot of stuff at them, and they keep fighting it off. And I'm just grateful and thankful that we've now figured it out, and we're in a situation where we know where we're at. Our feet are on the ground. We know what lies ahead of us. We know the challenges, and we just, as a group, have to figure out how we attack them right now.
Coach Brendan Ortega from KOB. Obviously, the NCAA tournament we now know is going to be in a bubble. This bubble experience in particular, being in Arizona, how much are you hoping this experience gets the guys ready for what, like, a conference tournament during a pandemic will be like? Potentially NCAA tournament and any other bubble situations you guys could get in during this pandemic, not knowing how long this could last?
Yeah, those are all good questions. Certainly, I'm not thinking that far ahead. If I was you, I'd probably ask a question like that, completely understand it. But I got so much more to be concerned about and focus on. And, we're trying to get games. We're trying to not embarrass ourselves on the court and get blown out by someone or get beat by someone that all the fans think we shouldn't. So, thinking about the conference tournament and any NCAA tournament to me is la la land right now. But I certainly could see maybe a pathway to us being comfortable in those type of situations if that ever came to be.
Do you have, I guess, any kind of timeline or anything in terms of putting a schedule together, or where you might be playing
Just
games?
Every day changes, man. Like we just randomly spent 2 hours around a round table with 3 or 4 of the coaches, talking through different scenarios, who has games, what dates they have available, what dates are available at certain arenas where we're staying. That's a whole nother factor that normally you don't have to worry about. We've got, okay, this facility's got these dates, this facility has those dates, but we can't necessarily play that team there, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of balls in the air, and it's definitely like a jigsaw puzzle right now. But like I said earlier, man, I'm not, it is what it is. I mean, we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. We're not going to have excuses. We're going to make it happen. We're going to put the best schedule together that we can. But it takes 2 to tango, and coaches are funny, man. Coaches are a different breed. Some of them will make decisions quickly. Some of them take forever. Some of them talk out of both sides of their mouth, and you never know which side's telling the truth and which isn't. So, we've got to wade through all that to try to figure out, who's real and who's not, who really wants to play, who really doesn't want to play, who's posturing, who's not. It's a game within the game, and I don't like it. And you add a pandemic, a late start, and now a bubble, and it's difficult. But we're going to figure it out. We're going to get some games out there. Obviously, we're going to play some non-D1s like we do every year. We'll probably, our plan would probably to play them early, just because of the obvious. That would help us, maybe speed up the process of getting to where we need to be to play against really good Division I competition. But other than that, that's where we're at right now.
Yes, where is your level of frustration from about 2 weeks ago at WAC Media Day to now?
It feels like 2 months ago, Kyle. I mean, I feel good. I do. I'm excited about the challenge. I'm excited to coach my team. I mean, it feels like, it's like I'm a kid again, and it's Christmas Day. I'm a little disappointed because, I didn't get to see Santa last night, with the delay, with practice being moved now, with the floor not being available. But all of us do. There's a bounce in our step. There was some eagerness in their eyes at video today. I think they're really happy with where we're at and the surroundings. It's a beautiful setup for us to be safe and to have access and, to really hone in on what we need to do right now. And, ask me in 10, 12 days, how they feel about it, once they've been here a while and the comforts of home aren't here and some of the people they're used to seeing aren't around. And you can imagine that. But, I'm excited about where we're at. I'm excited about the challenge, and I just really can't wait to get on the court and start working with our guys. And they're ready too. I mean, they're tired of playing, patty cake. They want to get after it. They want to compete. They want to grind. They want to get physical. And, hopefully that'll happen real soon.
Have you had any conversations with Coach Terry over at UTEP trying to get that game in, and just the importance of having that game on your schedule this season?
Yeah, I mean, we want to play them. We want to play them twice, just like we want to play UNM twice. Everyone's got issues, but there's daily talk back and forth between staffs to try to figure out where everybody is. For me, it's 100%. The biggest thing that we want to do is to play our rivalry games, regardless of where they're played. I think that that's important for the historical perspective of both programs, or all 3 programs, if you will, if you consider us playing both of them twice. And it's very important to me. It's very important to our program. And we're going to do whatever we have to do to make those happen. In an ideal world, I kept telling the other guys on my staff, Coach Miller, Coach Anwar, and Coach Barker, that, I'd like to get those scheduled first, and then so we have more dates available. And that we can be more flexible. But unfortunately, with only 7 days remaining, it doesn't look like that may be the case. So we have to start scheduling other games and still working with those 2 programs to figure out when those dates are going to be and where they're going to be held and all that good stuff. So, it's a priority for us. It's always going to be a priority for us. And I just sure hope that it happens. It has to happen. I just don't know how, with the proximity of programs, with the historical rivalries, that these games have to be played one way or another.
Chris, obviously, this it's in flux and things can change by tonight, let alone any day. But as of now, as we're talking, how many non-conference games do you currently have at least penciled in on the schedule?
2. Yeah, we got 2 right now. We can play up to 11, but tomorrow we could have 8. It's one of those deals, and it's going to happen. I mean, I don't know how long you've been on, but it's going to happen. It's just when. And listen, we've had more obstacles than others, but there are more schools that aren't finished with their schedule than are, which is crazy, right? 7 days before, but it is what it is. I mean, people are canceling tournaments, and I mean, there's stuff going on behind the scenes that isn't public yet, where bubbles are bursting. Teams are switching bubbles, are switching MTEs, and it's disintegrating another one. And so now these other 3 teams are scrambling, and you got to have some timing. You got to work the phones. You got to use your relationships, and that's what we're trying to do. But we'll end up being able to play, plenty of good programs. But like I said earlier, if we could get those 4 rivalry games in, that would alleviate a lot of stress for everybody. I think make anyone that in the Southwest that loves those games happy as well.
Hey, Chris, is there an actual cutoff on when you guys can? I mean, football's having the Pac-12 had a game scheduled on a Friday that was played on a Sunday morning. Could we see a December 20th kind of like 2 teams kind of have their opponents canceled? Could you be scheduling up until late December a non-conference game possibly?
I don't know of any NCAA guidelines or mandates that disallows any type of scheduling during the season. I'm not saying that it won't happen in the future. And I've said this all along, that even further than that, Jeff, I think there's going to be games during league play, right? Like a Pac-12 team is going to play a Big 12 team that's not on the schedule, and it's going to be scheduled during league play because they didn't get some marquee games. They're right on the fringe with their neck. And so, hey, we need to pair up. One of us, or both of us will benefit one way more than the other. But I think you're going to see a lot of that throughout the year. I could be wrong. Who knows? With the constant movement with the coronavirus and vaccines and medication and all that, who knows what it's going to look like in January. Schedule cards out this year. Let's put it that way. I don't think people are going to spend a lot of money on posters and schedule cards because I think they're going to be changing all the time.
Is there in some weird way, I wouldn't call it a silver lining to any of this, but like, is there a potential opportunity for a team like New Mexico State that in January or February might love one of those booster type of games for a resume?
I hope so. Hope so.
Non-conference, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. But we're going to be, I think it's going to be a deal where, like, normally only scheduling thoughts that you would have during the course of a basketball season would be for the following year. And, some people do it early, some people wait. We do a little bit early, but more late. But I think that you'll see a lot of teams, paying attention to that and browsing the scheduling site and making calls and pouncing on, cancellations that become public. And to see if other teams want to pair up and play. And I think it's going to be wild. I think it's going to be a roller coaster ride for everybody and certainly for the people that follow it at the same time.
I hadn't thought about that non-conference opportunity in January and February, but you're right. I hadn't thought about that. That's good.
Coach, what about the thoughts of extra years of eligibility, especially this upcoming season? Have you had the chance to really sit down and talk to some of your players, especially the seniors, and gauge their interest in you could have the same group coming back a year from now if you really wanted to?
I don't want you on these anymore. You ask me questions I don't want to answer. First of all, I haven't had those conversations because, one, I don't want to be the jilted girlfriend and be told that they don't want to play for me anymore, and I anticipate them kind of answers, right? They might not tell me that now because I'm like, man, if he doesn't think I like him, then he's not going to play me, type deal. But, it's there. We haven't addressed it. We got a lot more things to worry about. Certainly there's going to be a time that we need to because of recruiting, et cetera. I think my staff maybe has had some conversations with some guys, But, that'll be a fluid situation. I think it could change as the year progresses in terms of what type of year they have. And I think a big sticking point to that, and we won't know it, I think, for quite some time, is what the overseas market's going to look like. What kind of professional jobs could some of these guys secure or not secure? Because right now it's bleak. It's really rough. There's not a lot of good stories out there of kids having opportunities. Kids that would go get X amount of dollars playing overseas aren't getting those opportunities because there's just not as many available jobs. And so I think that'll be a big tipping point on what seniors decide to do, not just at New Mexico State, but all across the country. But I can tell you this: I'd love to have all of them back. I mean, and I wouldn't say that every year, but I would say it this year. I would take every one of our seniors back and would smile ear to ear in the off season. But we'll see how that plays out.
Coach, how's the team looking like just health-wise? I know there were a good amount of injuries heading into last season. Is everyone looking like they'll be ready to go this year?
Yeah, we've had one injury that's been serious. Kalen Williams, a newcomer, he broke the 5th metatarsal in one of his feet. I'm not sure if it was left or right. I can't picture it right now. And so he's been out for a few weeks. He had surgery. And he'll be out the first semester, which, that's no fun. It hurts our depth. Really liked where he was at. He was a defensive first guard, or he is a defensive first guard that really played hard. Walking in the door, he was a cut above most of our guys when they normally arrive on just getting after it. So that's exciting for me and how we play. And that's hurt us in practice, and certainly it's going to hurt his individual, growth. But other than that, we've had our share, of ankles and shoulders and things like that. But, the one positive thing about having to practice the way that we've had to practice is you don't get hurt as often. We're as healthy right now as we've been, other than Kalen, and this year or any year for that matter, just because you're not grinding them quite as much, and practices obviously aren't as physical, as they normally are. So that's one silver lining in having to practice that way.
Anything else for Coach Jans from anybody? Okay, perfect. Hearing none, thanks for hopping on today, guys, and thanks to Coach Jans for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.